Seconder, Councillor Monroe. Any questions? Not seeing any. I'll call for the question. All in favor?
Thank you, Your Worship.
Any opposed? Carried. Moving on to item 4, the approval of the previous meeting minutes. I'll look for direction from council regarding those previous minutes. Councillor Buckingham.
I move that the regular council minutes dated May 4th, 2020 be approved.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Torreson. Thank you. Any further discussion on those minutes? Not seeing any. I'll call for the question. All in favor, please raise your hand.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Opposed? Carried. Moving on to item number 5, business arising from those minutes. Not seeing any noted. Moving on to item 6, bylaws. City Manager.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council. For 6.1, bylaw number 18-2020, mill rate and taxable assessment bylaw, I'll ask the City Clerk, Doug Rodwell, to present.
Thanks, City Manager. Your Worship, Council. The item we have before us is bylaw number 18-2020, the mill rate and taxable assessment bylaw. And the recommendation is that Council grant the second and third readings to those bylaws, to that bylaw. Administration has calculated the 2020 mill rates based on the final assessment roll and the 2020 budget requirements. Council's approval of the bylaw is required in order to begin the levy process and ensure that the 2020 tax notices are delivered to property owners in a timely manner. The background is that Council is required to annually pass a tax bylaw under Section 302 and 319 of the Lloydminster Charter to set mill rates. These rates are calculated based on the required revenues determined during the budget process, the requisitions from the school divisions, and the final assessment roll received from the city assessor. The taxable assessment is $4 million higher than the amount presented in the first reading due to anticipated revisions that were not agreed to or appealed instead through the assessment complaint process, which ended May 4th, 2020. The total taxable assessment for 2020 tax year is $4.580 billion, which is up $4.435 billion in 2019, or a 3.3% overall increase. In 2020, with the assessment and proposed mill rate changes, the tax levy will collect an estimated $35,958,439 for municipal purposes as approved in the 2020 budget revisions on May 4th. The tax mill rate composition is made up of the municipal levy, residential, and the municipal levy non-residential, the seamless education levy, the education levy non-residential, a commercial mill rate factor, which makes the total residential mill rate for 2020 as proposed rate is 9.4470 mils, and the total non-residential 15.4219 mils. These final mill rates accounts for all assessed revisions to date and ensure that the budget requirements are met as outlined in the 2020 budget as revised. The municipal levy rates are the only ones that changed since the first reading, and the other rates remain the same. The total residential mill rate will decrease by 4.15% from last year, and the total non-residential mill rate will decrease approximately 5.27% from last year. The tax rate decrease plus any change in assessment value will result in a total change in taxes. The total percentage change would be different for every property, depending on their assessment. For example, a residential property that lost 1% on its assessment since the last year would see a decrease in their taxes of approximately 5.15%, whereas another residential property that saw a 1% increase in assessment since last year would see a 3.15% decrease in their taxes. Tax notices will be printed and mailed out on May 22nd, 2020. Property taxes are due upon mailing. Due to the COVID-2019, the last date for payment before penalty has been extended to November 10th, 2020. However, property owners in a position to continue paying their property taxes by regular due date are encouraged to do so. The options for council is council approve the first and second readings, council not approve this first and second readings, and council request further information from administration. The budget and financial implications is that the budget in 2020 identified the municipal levy revenue required to balance the budget, and the approved budget in November was for a municipal levy of $37,207,940. However, through budget revisions, the city now only requires a municipal levy of $35,958,439. This levy amount will be generated by the calculated mill rates. And just as a reminder to council, on the average price of a residential impact, an average residential home is valued at $288,392. And this, if there is no assessment change, that residents would see a reduction of $115.41 annually. A non-residential impact, and the average non-residential property is valued at $1,135,822. And that property would see, if it saw no change in its assessment, a reduction of $955.23. And with that, I'll turn that back over to you, Your Worship.
Thank you, City Clerk. Questions or comments from council? I believe, as you said, City Clerk, the mill rate has been reduced just slightly. It was 6.3135, I believe.
That's correct, and it's been reduced to 6.3075 mils. Remind council that in 2019, the residential levy was 6.5910 mils.
Any questions or comments? Councilor Baker.
Just, excuse me, Your Worship. I guess we've worked this over for the last 4 or 5 months, and we can only do what we can do. And it's just unfortunate that we had some errors in the previous assessments, and a few people are going to get hit fairly hard with assessment increases. And from what I understand is there's really nothing we can do about it. It's the way it is, and it has to be. But I really hope you never see this again when you get these errors and these big spikes when it comes to the assessment. And, it's going to be tough on a few people. And I'm going to support this because we got to get on with the show. But if there was some possible way to help out those extremely higher excess properties that we caught because of errors could be corrected, I would like to see that. But saying that, it's what it is, and that's all I got to say, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councilor Baker. I appreciate those comments, and I think we can all appreciate that correcting and catching things up is a challenge, especially this year. It couldn't have been a worse year from that perspective. And as we've talked about, nobody saw what we've saw in the last 2 months coming at all, and how it's impacted our city, our community, our taxpayers, the working people, the businesses in this community, as well as surrounding. But certainly we know that it's been compounded due to the price of oil, and heavy oil in particular has taken a severe beating at the marketplace. So we've been challenged, and I believe we will get through it, but it's going to not be without a little bit of pain. And we hear about it constantly about tax pain. Councillor Diachuk, did you have your hand up? Did I?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to clarify. I guess I don't disagree with anything that's said, and recognize that the challenges are there. But I just want to make sure that people understand is that finding these corrections and errors is only as a result of us taking over or doing our own tax assessment, and that in fact it's going to be done in a much more accurate and I would say, more invested role from the standpoint of the city's involved in leading the assessment as opposed to simply contracting it out. And we've heard horror stories in the past of how, a phone call would simply negotiate, the value of the assessment in order to save a trip and so on and so forth. And I just feel, there are challenges, and I'm certain that as we go forward that by the time we get through the whole city, there will be other examples we'll find that haven't been assessed properly as well. Some may be high, some may be low, and that's part of it. But I think again, it's the underlying premise around all of this is that assessment will be done fairly in a manner that everybody will look through that same lens as opposed to a lens of convenience of not having to come down and review a property. So again, going forward, I recognize that I've heard from folks in our community as early as this morning as well relative to the taxes. And I think people recognize the difficult spot we're in. There's some added costs to our budgets that we really, have been dealt with from a number of areas and challenges. And I think people are ready to hunker down and get set and try to get our economy moving and make the best of it. But there's recognition that there are a lot of pieces that are at play that really we have very little control over.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Torson.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I guess, as far as where we're at right now, I guess I'd just like to kind of thank administration, the finance team, assessment team, everyone in taxation, and I guess across all departments that kind of rose to the task as far as finding a way to reset this budget a little bit and recognizing the financial challenges that our community's in. There's going to be a lot of people who are having a difficult time through this period, and we've done different things as far as what we can do as far as deferrals and things like that. But finding a way to reduce the overall amount that's going to be impacted by individual ratepayers in this period is going to be very important for their own economic and financial survival. So, a lot of work went into even getting us to a point where we could have a certain amount of a mill rate decrease. And I'm just really thankful that we could actually get somewhere that could go into helping a lot of people. One thing that I think a lot of people don't really think about is how their municipal government runs sometimes. I think everyone has a very strong handle on, federal and provincial, and they look at these things and, oh, the federal government's got this spending program, or the provincial government's got a spending program to help out with this crisis. And the reality is, at the municipal level, your ability to do things like that just simply do not exist. Well, we cannot run deficit budgets. We cannot take on additional debt over a certain amount in a certain proportion of our overall revenues. So we only have certain tools in our toolbox that we can use. And one of them is what we've done here, and some of the other things where we've reduced budget in the current year, and we have given deferrals where it's possible, that's allowed within our charter. But we can't do what other levels of government are. So if your income is down because you're on the CERB or something along those lines, and maybe your income's down, so you'll end up paying less tax this year. But the reality is, we don't have the ability to backstop losses like that the way that other levels of government do. So to a certain extent, some people may not be happy because it's still, business as usual to a certain extent, but we're doing everything we can within our kind of power as a level of government to try and minimize the impact on the ratepayers and try and maximize the service that they're getting. So, I understand that some people will never be happy with having to pay any kind of taxes or fees or anything like that because they don't feel as though they take advantage of the full services that exist. But there's a lot of people who do use these things, and they do use the services and programs and things that exist within the city that make it a nice place to live, which is why so many of the businesses and residents have come to our community in the first place. So, I think it's important that we're doing what we can to try and help. And hopefully some people can recognize that we're doing our best given the circumstances, but we don't have the same kind of leverage or ability to do things that you may see at other levels of government.
Well said, Councillor. Thank you. Any other comments? Not seeing any. I'll look for direction on the bylaw number 18-2020, mill rate and taxable assessment bylaw. Councillor Torson.
Oh, I move that. Can we scroll that screen upwards to the recommendation above? Is that possible? Oh, someone's listening out there. Thank you. I move that council grant second reading to bylaw number 18-2020, mill rate and taxable assessment bylaw.
Thank you. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Diachuk. Thank you very much. Is there any further questions to the question I'm about to call? Not seeing any. All in favor, please raise your hand.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Opposed? Carried. I'll look for direction from council on third reading.
Thank you, Worship. Just to be clear to the city clerk, I was not opposed after I had voted in favor. I was putting my hand up to read the next motion.
No problem. I think he's got that. So,
okay, I move that council grant third and final reading to bylaw number 18-2020, mill rate and taxable assessment bylaw.
thank you. Look to Secretary Councilor Diachuk. Thank you very much. Any further discussion on the motion to be voted on? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor, please raise your hand.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Opposed? Carried. Moving on to agenda, item is next is mayor and council reports. I have nothing to report other than to remind council and the public when this meeting is over and adjourned, we will be leaving and coming back into another Zoom meeting. So if people are confused by we're disconnecting, there are two separate meetings today, this being the council meeting and followed by the GPC meeting. So if anyone, after we leave this, you'll need to reconnect through the Zoom invite. From the mayor's perspective, I don't have anything to report at this time. Any council reports that need to be brought forward? Not seeing any noted. Is there any other matters at this time that this council needs to deal with as a council? Not seeing any. We will be taking inquiries from the media after the GPC meeting so we can keep things moving because we've got about 10 minutes before the next meeting starts. So with that, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Councillor Buckingham was quick on the draw today. Thank you very much. And did see your other hands, councillors, which I appreciate, but Councillor Buckingham gets the draw on the adjournment. Meeting adjourned. We'll see everybody shortly. Thank you very much.